And you can't get anything simpler than one without a second, not even two. And you know that already, because can you start any count with two? So until they put that one essence on it, that's when it all carries on from there. So I can't teach you anything, and I can't tell you anything. Know that for certain. Nobody can ever teach you anything. Nobody can ever tell you anything. Because you recognise it. We all are appearances only. Pattern, shapes and forms which are appearing in that space-like awareness, that pure intelligence energy, or whatever you like to call it, whatever label you put on it. In that space-like awareness, it's just what they call no mind. And when they mean no mind, or the unborn mind, they call it the unborn mind. That's the pure mind, or another word of putting it is pure awareness. Anybody unaware right now? No, so you must be aware, so no need to get confused with that word awareness and try and grasp something that we think is awareness, because it's naturally with each and every one of you right now. They call it Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nama, Rupa, the 5 factors of Hinduism. Sat is existence, Chit is consciousness, Ananda is loving to be, or the bliss of being, or whatever you like to put on. And the other 2 factors, Nama, Rupa, name and form. And all the names we put up on ourselves, each one of the names we got, what we're giving this form. That's what's sitting here, this form. Each and every one of these forms we put a name on ourselves. The same as we put a name on everything, or a word. A name, a form, name, a rupa, they say is Maya, illusion. That means that you and I are illusion. So how can one illusion tell another illusion? We'll point to it or show it. But you've got to recognise that. And it's a phenomenal manifestation, they say. Dictionary definition of phenomena is that which appears to be. So the appearance is all seemingly solid and substantial, out there, in the air, everywhere around. But that's all it ever is. And it's all got labels on it. And I tell you that in the Bible. In the beginning it was the Word. The Word was with God and the Word was God. That's all God is a Word, a label we put on it. All things were made by Him, by the Word. There was nothing made that was made without the Word. And isn't that what we've done? We put labels, we've learnt words and put on everything. And when they say the great man, I have that, we know that innately in our language. That's the chair, before you put the word chair on it. That's the table, that's you, that's me. Everything is that pattern, shape and form, illusionary pattern, shape and form, the Maya, is there, but we've labelled everything. So nothing was made without the Word, all things were made by the Word. And what we've done is the recognition that every word you've ever spoken or ever likely to speak has been picked up. We've learnt words. Anyone here was born with any word? You weren't. So, and you didn't have any beginning until you learnt those words. When you learnt words about 2.5, that means you were alive for the first 9 months in the womb, and then the 9 months after you were born, until the capacity of reason developed and you learnt words. So in those first couple of years you got on quite well without the word. You had your parents looking after you, of course, and helping you, but you knew, if you're hungry you cried, if you're happy you'd giggle or laugh, if you're taken in by something you'd reach for it and try and grab it or push something else away. You were breathing, heart beating, everything was functioning naturally and effortlessly without the word. And the other analogy they use to point that out in the Bible is Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, which was paradise. So they were in paradise, and they learnt. They ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In other words, they learnt words. That's when we kicked out of paradise, and we've battled on from there ever since. It's all because of this conceptualizing. They tell you, again, the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. Drop the words. See, look around the room right now and realising you're knowing what everything is without discriminating it, without putting the label on it. You know it's a chair without putting the label chair on it. You know, you don't know, without that word, you know it's not one homogeneous blob out there. All these seeming things are separate pattern, shapes and forms, all separate and apart, which we put labels on and differentiated from the totality. So it's the word is not the real. All these words you've learned, we've taken them to be the actuality, the real. But, so have a look at that. What we need to do, and all we've ever needed to do, is investigate and see for ourselves whether some of these beliefs we've taken on are real or not. Or put words on all of them. But take the word water, see if it's real. Drink the word if you can. Quench your thirst with the word. Drown in it, swim in it. You can't. The word fire. Does it burn you? Can you cook with it? Can you heat yourself? So this word, I or me, is that what you really are? A word or a label? Have a look and see. And we got the right one. I'm Bob, I'm an Australian, I'm a good fellow, or not so good. The people told me I was a bad boy, or I'm unhappy, or I'm introverted. All these words have been added onto that I thought and form a conceptual image of what I believe myself to be. Now look at that word belief. We've taken on all these beliefs. And they tell you that the belief is not the actual. It's not the real thing. Look up your dictionary definition of belief. It's an unquestioning acceptance of something in the absence of reason. It means we haven't questioned what's going on around us. We've just taken it on board, accepted it without reasoning it out. Acceptance of an alleged fact without positive knowledge or proof. And they put many metaphors to point that out, to see that the word's not the real. Like the blue sea, go down to the ocean, get me a bucket of blue water, see if the sea's blue or not. And you look at it and you'll find, though it still appears to be blue, it doesn't stop appearing to be so. And that's what this Maya is, my name and form. It's appearance only. The sky appears to be blue. We appear to be these persons, these separate entities, these individuals. Investigate it and see how separate you are. Separate yourself from the air, separate yourself from the water, take the body and the air out of your water, take the fire, get off the earth, get out of space. When you're not separate from any of these things. And even this mind, we really are this mind, made up of words, concepts, ideas, images. Because show me your mind. Each of us claim my mind. What are you claiming? Show me it. What is it? What is it packaged in? What's the shape? What boundaries has it got? Nothing at all. So there's no such thing as mind, as they say, apart from thinking. And if thinking is the mind, and you are the mind, you'd be a particular thought. Which particular thought would you be? Well, the primary thought is, the basic thought you learn is, I am. You're seeing, hearing and all the rest, and you just add it to this, I am. That sense of presence is aware of presence right now, existing. You're all existing, you're all conscious, you're all happy to be. And that's happening, what you call presently, when you put that word presently on, in the immediacy of this moment. Immediacy is timeless, no such thing as I'm in the moment, no such thing as time, but we've taken them with the words again. We've given ourselves space, time and all these things. But have a look. We've picked up these words and learnt these words and believe them. The other metaphors are, I forget anyway. I forget a lot of this stuff now, getting old. Yeah. But we've taken belief that we are this person. That's another word. Where does that come from? Doesn't it come from persona, a mask? And what's a mask? It's something we cover ourselves up, our face up with things. We put a mask on it, a hood or something like that that covers it. So we've got this mask of concepts on this pure presence awareness. We put the mask on it, and that's what we call the persona, the mask. And that's what I just pointed out before. I'm Bob, the Australian, the good fellow, not so good. That's the mask I put on myself. And I put on everybody else, this mask too. They're no good, or they're unhappy, they're this, they're that, the other, and all the rest of it. You've got mask of words, concepts on them. Images. Nisargadatta tells you nothing can trouble you except your own imagination. We hear these things, but how often do we look into them and really investigate? Nothing can trouble you except your own imagination. And what's that word, imagination? Break it down to image in. And realise that's what we're doing. We're creating mental or conceptual images about everything. And taking the image to be real. Like that mirror at the back of the room there, or in these wells. Have a look at it. What do you see? You see reflections in it, or images in the mirror. Now you can't say they're not there. Have a look at them. They're there, all right. But go up to them and try and grab one. See how real it is. All you'll do is grab the glass behind it. You won't grab the image. So you can't say they're not there, you can't say they are there. They appear to be there. And all these concepts about yourself, words, concepts are mental construct. And nothing can trouble you except your own imagination. What we are imaging in or imagining. And that is the fear, the anxiety, the stress, the guilt, the shame, the jealousy, the envy, the unhappiness, the depression, all this psychological suffering are these labels we put on the sensation. A pure sensation comes up. Keep it there. We give it a feeling. This is sadness. This is anger. This is anxiety. This is stress. This is remorse. We put the label on this sensation. And see what we've done. Instead of the anger that comes up right now, if it comes up, how do you know it's anger? Well, I've had this sensation before. And it was anger, what we're told it was anger. And now, ever since then, every time this sensation has come up, it's been labelled anger. And the energy of belief has gone into it. And instead of seeing it fresh in you, like every thought, feeling and emotion and sensation is fresh in you, we don't. We put the old label on it and go down the same old path. Anxiety, fear, distress, guilt. What happened if you looked at it again and see it fresh and new? This is a fresh and new sensation. Have a look at it without putting the old label. See what happens then. And this conceptual image you've got about yourself, all based on dead images. Images based on past events, experiences and conditioning. Past events, the events are gone. The conditioning, what conditioning is there if you don't think about it? Just the same as what's wrong with right now if you don't think about it. Can't say it's good, bad, pleasant or painful without putting the old label on it. But if you see it fresh and new without the label, you might see something in it you haven't had the chance to see before because we put the old label on it and reinforce it before we give it a chance to really look into it. And what do we do then? We resist it. We try to get rid of it if it's bad, if there's something unhappy. We don't want it to be there. We resist it, and resistance is conflict. Or it's a good image comes up. We want to keep that, not realising everything in this manifestation, including you, me, and everything else, is transient. It's constantly changing. There's nothing static about it. If there be anything static, it'd have the concept of time would be real. But this present immediacy has no beginning and no end because it's constantly changing. You can't grasp this. We grasp it and put a concept of time on it, on a dead image. Something comes up and we don't want the good things to go, not realising that it's a transient. And have a look at that and see that that body you walked into the room with is not the same body you walked in the room with. It's changing. There are thousands of cells dying in it right now and being replaced. The life, the functioning of what we call life is going on. It's happening spontaneously, naturally and effortlessly. Effortlessly. Just the same as you effortlessly take that next breath. Expand your heart, contract your heart. Digest your food, blink your eyes. All happening naturally and effortlessly. But we think we've got to try and fix it, make it so. And this conceptual image that we've taken on board thinks it can do that. Thinks it can alter and change things. And that's what we try to do. And that's when we get frustrated, anxious, fearful. So we try and keep the good things there, not realising that transient, they're going to change anyway. Don't want them to go away, but they do go. To realise everything in this manifestation is transient, constantly changing. We don't want it to go. What do? We think we run the show, we learn all these words and concepts, and ideas and images, whatever it is. We think we're running the show. We want to keep it there. We don't want the good things. We think we can choose these things to happen to us and we can keep them there. Not realise it's going to pass, and to try to stop it from going, we resist it. Resistance is conflict. And any conflict you are in is anxiety, is stress, is guilt, is fear, is unhappiness. Another call of that uneasiness is dis-ease. So there's resistance, conflict and dis-ease going in us constantly. The other way, something we don't like comes up, to see it works both ends of the stick. At the other end, with the things we don't like, comes up, what do? We try to get rid of this one. The first one we're trying to keep there, this one we try to get rid of. And we resist it from being there. We do all we can to push it out, to get rid of it. Again, resistance, conflict and disease. That's what our life is made up of. All this psychological suffering that comes about. And the psychological suffering is all made up of words. Fear, anxiety, stress, guilt, unhappiness, remorse, jealousy, envy, depression. All words, all concepts, all labels we put on it. And the label, you go into Myers and come out with a shirt, the label shirt, you wouldn't be too happy. You want the shirt itself, not the label. And that's what we put labels on and hang around and fixate in the labels and stay with the labels or the words. Doesn't have to be that way. So, this thing we call mind, that's just another label that's going on, a vibration of energy which we call thought. Sound is a vibration of energy. It forms words out of sound. That word, where does that sound come from? The stillness, the silence. Where does all the movement come from? The emptiness, the silence again. That's the basic screen in which everything appears in. All in that emptiness, that cognising emptiness. They call it a cognising emptiness. Another word for cognising is knowing. A knowing emptiness. And we take that the wrong way, which we take a lot of these words and concepts and get trapped in it, because we think we are cognising the emptiness. I'm cognising the emptiness, me. But I'm not. It's the emptiness itself. It has that capacity, or ability, or whatever you like to call it, to cognise. And the Buddha told you that when he said emptiness is form. It is that cognising or intelligence and emptiness that's patterning, shaping and forming all of this manifestation, including me, you, and everything out there, or in there, or higher or lower, or wherever you like to put it. It's forming the lot. And those forms, the emptiness is form, and the forms are nothing other than the emptiness. So it's never changed its true nature from that basic screen in which everything appears, though all sorts of multiple forms, patterns, shapes and forms, and a variety and diversity of patterns, shapes and forms appear and express in it. And the realisation or the recognition must come about that you are that. You are that life, you are that emptiness, you are that formless emptiness, or cognising emptiness. Already, that's what they call the great mantra, I am that. That's what they tell you all the time, I am that. See it. What do you do with that? Oh, you say, that's a good one, I'll keep that one and try that, but we don't really look into it. And to see, innately, we already know it in our language. Because you say, that's a chair, that's the carpet, that's the mirror, that's the space in the room, that's the room. We put labels on that. And I am that. I am that, we believe, body, mind, entity. But instead of saying, I am the reality, I am the actuality. I am the totality. I am the self. There's only one self, not many selves, but as soon as what do? We say myself. And we've formed ourselves, each one of us myself, to make multiple selves, when it's only the one self. Because it's self-aware, it's self-shining, it's self-knowing, it's self-breathing, it's self-seeing. It's the one cognising emptiness that's selfing, that's doing all these things. But we put the self on, myself on it, we've separated, it thinks this individual, this person, is the self they're talking about. Because I tell you to realise the self. And we keep realising this persona, keep getting trapped into it. It doesn't have to be that way. Realise it's the one self that's appearing and expressing, patterning, shaping and forming as everything. And you are that. Anyone who is not existing? No. You'll say, I am existing. You'll know it immediately. Anyone who's not conscious or unaware, you know, no, I'm not unaware. So if you're not unaware, sitting there, right here and here, you must be aware. You must be existing and conscious and aware. Are you happy to be? Everybody wants to be. Nobody wants to be dead or a corpse. So you're happy to be. So you are that Sat Chit Anand. So what do? We need to discard the Nama Rupa, the name and form. No need to discard it even if you understand what it is. It's just labels, it's just words, just concepts. There's no reality into it. Basically, you're only that Sat Chit Ananda. Another way of putting that is being, knowing, and loving to be. You can't negate your beingness right now, can you? And you can't negate knowing that beingness, knowing that I am. And again, the loving to be. We love to be. Another way of putting it is have an affectionate awareness of being. And affectionate is another way of putting love. Affectionate awareness of that awareness, knowingness. Not of the body, mind, but the awareness of that. So a bit warm towards yourself. Warm towards that beingness. I love to be, it's good. I don't have to put up with all the shit that goes on in there. Don't have to listen to it or take it on board. And love is life. Life is love. And have a look at that. Aren't you this life right now? And that's what the Nisargadatta tells us. He says there's nobody who lives a life. Nobody. So all these body, minds and labels we put on it are really nobody. It's really the life itself that's living and expressing and appearing, patterning, shaping, forming as itself. I don't use the term God because we can get confused with that term. We all have a different concept of what we believe God is, but whatever, depending on whatever your traditional belief is, whether you're Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Jew, atheist or agnostic or whatever. That's the concept you take on of what God is, and my religion is. My God is a Christian God or a Muslim God or whatever. I don't believe in that, use that term. I use the term intelligence energy, and that's just a concept too. Don't take that, I am intelligence energy. It's just another label. But it sits better than what this traditional religious belief is about. What's intelligence? I'm not talking about your intellect when I'm talking about intelligence. I'm talking about the pure intelligence, the one intelligence that's patterning, shaping, and forming and everything. Look out there in nature. It's causing the earth to roll around the sun, the seasons to come and go, the tides to come and out. All tsunamis to happen, everything. The fires that are burning right now. Patterned by that innate life essence, intelligence, energy. And the same intelligence is breathing you right now. Are you the entity breathing? Wait a minute, before I take this breath, I've got to, it's me, Bob, I'm going to breathe. You doing that? You the entity that's beating your heart, contracting it. You the entity that's digesting your food, replacing the cells in your body. Well, there's no entities doing any of that. It's spontaneously, naturally and happening, just the same as you grew in the womb. What were you doing about that then? And you had no words to say, I'm doing this. The innate intelligence, that's the intelligence I'm talking about, that forms galaxies out there. Planets, stars and everything else are formed by it, breaks them down. Or it explodes, implodes, does all the things out there in nature. And it's breathing and beating heart, doing all these things. It's the one essence that's patterning, shaping, forming, and experiences everything. And you can't be anything other than that. Take your stance there. Realise it, recognise it. And the mind is not the enemy. There's some useful words there can be used. So you don't have to throw every word out, but you recognise and intuit the ones that are useful. Intuition is a natural inner teaching, that knowing, another word. Intuit. And that spontaneous intuition guides you. You are the life. As Christ tells you, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. And people thought he was talking about himself and set him up as a saviour, sages, or seers, or a god, and then worshipped the messenger and lost sight of the message they were pointing out. That's what we do. Take the message. Recognise the message. Test it out. Try it for yourself. And that's the only thing. You can only do it for yourself. No one's going to do it for you. See if the words are real. See if these things are so. Look at time. Look at all these concepts. Look at this persona. Question it. Investigate it. Stay with it. And recognise or realise that you are that intelligence energy. You are that life. Another way of looking at it, take the body, the life essence out of that body. And you've got a corpse. And look at that corpse before it gets too old and rots down and breaks down and sits too high and puffs up. Look at that corpse. It's got eyes in it still, it's got a heart, ears, it's got a mouth, it's got a heart, it's got lungs, kidneys. All the organs are still there. Well, what stopped it from functioning? The very life itself, the animating intelligence energy is taken out of it. And it's not a bit good for you. And a good metaphor for that too is the computer. Look at that. Got a lot of information in the computer, can do amazing things which the intelligence energy functioning through these patterns are able to form, utilising it. It's got a lot of information to it, but without those power turned on, you can punch those keys forever and run the mouse over it. You're not going to get anything out of it. It's the same as that corpse. You're not going to get anything out of that life in it. Mustn't that tell you something? Mustn't it tell you that I'm not this body? This body's an instrument for which I'm functioning. I am that life itself. And then like Christ, I can say, I am the life. That is what I am. And he says, there's nothing, there's only life. There's nobody or no thing that ever lives a life. It's only life, patterns, shapes, forms and expression in all its variety and diversity, showing the amazing and wondrous intelligence of it all. Intelligence that it can pattern in so many, in such a variety, in such a diversity, so many things. Take your stance there and see. Stop racing along trying to work it out in the mind, which we continually do. We get this idea or this concept, this theory, we take it and try and work it out, trying to find the answer in the mind. But we're intelligent people, you've worked on it for many years now, why haven't you found the answer there? Might that just dawn? Well, right, I've looked hard in all this direction all my life and never found it. Maybe it's not there. Maybe I've been looking in the wrong direction. There's so many other things you've looked at and you've turned away from because you knew the answer wasn't there. But the main answer, you've looked in the mind for the answer and maybe it's not there. So then you've got to look, well, I've looked in the mind all this time. What way is out of the mind? I've looked in every way I've always looked. It's always in the mind. What way is there out of the mind? Because if I look in the mind with the mind, it'll still be looking in it. What way is there out of it? It must dawn on you then there's only one way out of the mind. Full stop. Don't go there. Don't encourage it. And you can't pause the thought because, again, it's the mind that will pause the thought. It's the mind that's caused diverting. But you might be moved to try and look beyond it. What's beyond this thought? What's the next thought going to be? What's the next appearance? Look beyond it. You might get a taste then of what's prior to thought. And what is prior to thought is that life essence that you are, the pure intelligence energy that vibrates as the thought. It caused the thought to be there. Without that it couldn't be a thought. And everything else. Won't get the peace of mind. They tell you you'll never get peace of mind. And they point that out by saying the peace is when the mind is not. They're giving you a clue again. The peace is when there's no thought going on. There's another clue to look beyond it. So that's what needs to happen. Investigate and see for yourself. There's no use me mumbling on here because I can't do it for you. It's happened here and continually re-happening again and again and again that I am not this body, I'm not this mind. And so what used to come up and cause all sorts of problems now comes up and I can let it go before it takes a hold, or sometimes I can get caught and but I can no longer invest the energy of belief into it. And there's nothing in this universe that can live without having belief, energy being invested in belief, making it seemingly real. Because it's all that one essence, patterning, shaping, forming and appearing and expressing as everything. And you and I and everything else are that, always have been and always will be. And the pattern, shapes and forms appear, play around and disappear. And that's the wonderment of this manifestation again. It's constantly transient, constantly changing. Look at that and see if you can find a static point anywhere. A point that lasts. You realise when you look at it, there's no static point there, and there's no, what's that one? No self-nature to anything. I mean by that there's no personal self-nature to anything. Because it's the one self that's patterning, shaping, forming. It's not myself, which I've taken on and believed. We took that on because our parents taught us words, and they'd never looked at it, never pointed it out to us. We go to school and they teach us more words and more language and never pointed it out to us. And it goes on, we start reinforcing it ourselves. But down through the ages there's always been a few that have recognised it, and that's what the scriptures and that formed around. But today, in the ways of the communication today, it's much more people get the taste of it. But they take it and want to add more to it or muck it around, put a different concept, different label on it, and split it up and go on with the word. And the words go on forever and ever. Of the writing of the books there is no end. So, here it is, it's up to you now. Question, doubt, look into it, investigate, see for yourself. If I'm wrong, come back and tell me I'm full of shit. But I won't believe that. I can't believe it anymore. I might have believed it one time.
You might have been right. Back then.
There you go.
I'll ask a question about the I am, Bob. About the I am. Because there's, if we look at what's prior to thought, I can get a taste of that. But there's still a sense that I'm the centre of it. So there's still a sense, even watching for thought and watching it come, that so there's still a sense that I'm the centre.
The sense that it's the one sense, but you take that sense to be the sense of being a personal sense.
So how do you step, like, because I'm reading I am that, which is great, loving it, but Nisargadatta talks about consciousness and awareness. So that sense of I am and being the centre of it, is that the consciousness as opposed to the awareness? How do you distinguish between the two, and how do you step between the two?
Awareness, consciousness is existence, totally unaware that it exists.
You mean aware?
Or I got it wrong, totally aware that it exists. So that's what awareness is. The awareness is there, then the consciousness comes upon it. Awareness is just that pure knowing that you are. Then the conscious comes up there. Or, as I say, the unborn Buddha mind, the no mind. We think when they say no mind, you've got to get rid of mind as such. But no mind is the pure mind. You can't say anything about no mind without putting a concept or a word on it. So that's the unborn mind, what they call the unborn mind. So
that's the awareness.
Yes. It's everything appears on that. Everything manifests and expresses in that awareness.
And so consciousness expresses in that awareness too?
Consciousness is a movement away from it, yeah. Consciousness is just hard to put labels and everything on it. What can you say about awareness? Nothing. What can you do with it? Nothing. It is the background, the basic screen in which everything appears in.
So does the consciousness, it seems separate. In that case, the consciousness seems separate.
But it is. It's existence. Utterly aware that it exists.
But it's not individual.
No.
So my consciousness, that sense of being the centre, still has a self in it than the way I'm seeing it. So the way I'm seeing it is I'm still the centre. Yeah. So it's not quite it, is it?
Is your consciousness ever any different from my consciousness? The content might be different, but is the consciousness itself different than anyone in this room?
I can't say.
When the pattern breaks down at so-called death, where does the consciousness go? Goes back into pure consciousness, pure awareness, which has seemingly formed this pattern and is utilised and expresses through this pattern as separate. And it needs a vehicle to express through. In its pure consciousness, there's nothing going on in the world. There will be no world unless Shakti vibrated or danced, Shiva Shakti. Shiva, the static aspect, in which there's no world appearance to it or anything until Shakti, his consort, that's his partner or consort, dance or moved, vibrates. And that's all it is, a vibration of energy. Energy. Only that.
Can I add to it? Just wanted to. There is, like Bob says, the consciousness is conscious. We can't say that awareness is not conscious. It's neither conscious nor unconscious. It's nothing that can be said about awareness. But consciousness is conscious. And the thing that you experience, that there is a center from which the witnessing is happening. But if you really go into that center, can you see if you can tell anything about where does it end? It is the one thing that you can say, it is here. So I close my eyes and the experience of being is here. It's not that it is here as in the opposition to there. No, it's here. But that here doesn't really have location. It doesn't have the distance. It's not that 10 meters from me is not there anymore, because that is a concept. That is an idea that there is some other distance. So the here is, as Bob was saying, the here is always here, is the same. Every point in consciousness experiences itself here. So that here is only divided by different locations, by the images in the mind, by the projecting the bodies sitting in certain locations. And that consciousness, being conscious of being, is the consciousness. Awareness does not have the consciousness of being because it's completely static. So it's like Shiva is static, Shakti is moving. Shakti is the consciousness, Shiva is awareness. But awareness is a space in which the consciousness can play, in which it moves, it experiences. Experiencing is the consciousness, awareness is the background. And the here, like if you really, because it is kind of misguiding. Yeah, look, there is a self-center. There is a center. I feel there is something there. So I didn't get to the point of no self yet, because there is something there. That is always going to be there, because that's the being, that's the here, the here now. The here and the now is never going to go. It's just that this here now is not going to be personal. Now it is just objective, not objective. It's just there. It's there just for everyone, just for every plant and every animal and every insect, the here now. Image comes and takes it to be personal or in the body or centered in the heart or head or whatever. But that's only image that locates it. The here is totally unlocated without the interpretation.
So when it seems like it's here, you said in the heart and the body, have a look. Try and turn inward and look and see if you can find where is that spot in the body. If you've got a pain in your body or an ache in your body, you can pinpoint it. But this conceptual image you got, though it's seemingly solid, we've been there so long, have a look and see if you can find a point or a centre to it. And it dissolves under it because there is nothing there. It might appear, and when you ask yourself, where am I looking at that from? If it's seemingly in here, and I look at where I must be looking at it from somebody else. If I was here with it, it'll be right here. But go back to where you think you're looking at it from. That can be out here or somewhere else, anywhere. But there's no static point that you can pinpoint and say there's something you can really hang on to. And that's the trouble, is when we've taken ourselves to be myself, we think that self is the personal self. And that's the boundaries and limitations we put upon that self. It is the one self. There's only one Atman or self. It's that one self, patterning, shaping, forming, appearing, expressing it as everything. And everything must be that. You and I are things. So we are already that. The tree's a thing, the flower's a thing. Can something come from no thing? Because the basic screen is no thing. Can something come from nothing? It can't. So the things, as they say, are appearances only. Patterns, shapes and forms. Ideas, images. Nothing can trouble you except your own imagination. The mental image we formed, a conceptual image, taken it to be real, and reinforce it with more thoughts, concepts, ideas.
Isn't a pattern, shape or form still something though?
It appears to be.
If you're calling it a pattern, a shape.
It's all, can all be broken down. Put it under a microscope.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Mm.
That microscopic level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a unique pattern of energy, but it's actually no thing.
Yeah. Just kicking the tires, you know.
Understand?
So like something in a dream.
Dreaming of the dream.
We are such stuff as dreams are made of.
What was that?
Can you repeat that?
Beg pardon?
Can you repeat? Bob didn't hear you.
Oh, we are such stuff as dreams are made of,
Yeah.
or made of.
That pattern, shape and form newer. Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
That's the key.
My favourite's the tall
Yeah.
tale told by an idiot,
Yeah.
full of sound
Yeah.
and fury, signifying nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing doesn't mean a vacuum and a void. It means no thing. No pattern, no shape, no form.
Didn't Nisargadatta say, I can't remember if he said it was knowledge or understanding is the booby prize? I remember hearing that, because it's really to the point of who wants to know. And would you rather have the lightness of being in your life, or would you rather get back into the mind to stir up questions and answers of which you never get the real answer?
That's right.
Yeah, good point.
There's no answers in the
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
Because who's asking the question?
Yeah, exactly. That's the
Just
thing.
another part of the mind. Yeah. The memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The memory of me, which isn't the real.
And as Banky says, everything is perfectly resolved in the unborn mind. The unborn mind is the pure mind. Again, before we look at the concept. Nature will work itself out. Like these fires, there's been fires like that before today. There'll be fires like that again, like the ice ages.
Yeah.
Nature works itself out. And we as human beings, less than a grain of sand on the beach, we think we're going to change the world.
And we parasites, but it's not really us doing it. It's the nature doing it through us. It's the nature giving us those patterns of greed, and so it is still. It's not about blaming anyone. It is just recognizing what's behind it.
Take that label human being off. Take the label human off, and call God the supreme being. Take the label supreme off. What's left? Just the pure being. Anyone not being right now, and see that everything in this room is being. It's being a chair, being a carpet. The discrimination, the differentiation is the word. That's what we've done. We've learned words. And it can be very useful, and when it's utilised, but it can be very self-destructive, because the words we've learnt vibrate. They're just a vibration, and they vibrate in the opposites: good, bad, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, positive, negative. Have a look at your mind and see if it functions any other way than dualistically. There's absolutely no duality and non-duality. It's the one essence, even though all these pattern shapes and forms. It's that one essence is expressing through them, expressing as everything. And you are that life. You are not the body and not the mind. You are the life that throbbing or pulsating through that body gives it the capacity of reasoning, seeing, tasting, touching, working things out and doing this, doing that. All the doing of life itself. It's the life that's rolling the earth around the sun. It's the life, or the intelligence is that's causing the sun to shine, putting the energy through that sun and the light. Light is energy. That's what Christ told you. You are the light of life, the light of life. Let your light so shine before men they may see your good works. That light shining through that will enable the spontaneous natural functioning to happen. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. That life is a light that you're living by, reasoning by, thinking by. Call it life, or call it energy, but no label fits it.
The capacity for reasoning, that's like all part of the creation as well, isn't it? So the imagination, it's all, you know, it's all part of that creation. So that's not the enemy. Yeah.
Oh, there couldn't be any pattern show before without it.
Yeah.
That again shows the wondrous. Look at all the different patterns sitting in this room right now. All the different ideas, images and concepts that are going on through those patterns.
Yeah, think of the word shoes, or whatever you want to point to, and each one of us will have a different picture in our head, a different version of the word, and, you know, where's the common stuff? I mean, yeah, one of the things that I find interesting is that, you know, there's that phrase, seek and you will find, but most of what the conditioned mind does is seek to find another thing to try to find the thing that you already are. And it gets, you know, but that's a game, almost like that's how it survives, if you want to say, survives, is to keep seeking something instead of just being what you are in the beingness that's right here, right now.
Yeah. You find where to find, I am that self.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah. And as some of you know, I brought this thing, as some of you know here, last year I severed tendons before I came to the meetings, and I've been here a year ago. So we're talking about we're not the body or anything else, but I brought thing that I was going to put in my arm. It's a little humor always goes well in a serious thing, but here's my other arm, which is to show that if I were to have lost the arm and had it repaired and everything, this is not who I am. I am not my body and stuff. But you know, if anybody needs a hand with anything, just to let me know. Lightness of being.
Different ways of explaining.
True.
We're talking about not being the body as well, like some therapy that they use a mirror if you've got a damaged hand, and you can see the good hand, and they get you to move the good hand,
That's very
and it
cool.
helps heal the damaged hand.
Wow.
And they do things like that. They've also done experiments where they have a false hand, and you feel the sensations of tickling or pain when they actually stimulate the false hand.
And they're curing phantom pains with that. And to cure phantom pains, yes, if someone had amputation and they still experience tingling or itching or something. So they of course do experiments on the real hands. Yes, they put a mirror or they put
That's right.
how quickly brain takes assume that something, like if you tingling a hand that is fake, and at the same time behind the mirror or the wall you tingle the real one, the brain very quickly makes a connection. And the next thing they do, they come with the knife, and the brain comes up with the response of scream, because it's already assumed that the fake hand is the real one. It's really all assumption, the assumption of ownership of the body, the assumption of ownership of the entity in the body. This is all assumption that hasn't been questioned, which can very, very easily be, we can be easily disillusioned when it's investigated. But you're right, it's quite interesting phenomena, and it's quite well researched and presented.
Of the belief in this is my body that has the impact on the mind.
Absolutely.
And the reality. Change the reality of the phantom pain or the phantom issue.
Yeah. And you can see also, this is really funny phenomena, especially I've noticed that with men, you know, how they get really attached to their motorbikes or cars. They get so, if the car gets broken, they start actually looking for the place where it mirrors their own situation. The electricity in the car is broken. Oh, this is all about me, you know, it's a story. But it is how the ownership extends, you know. I'm not just my body, I'm my car, I'm my house, this is my identity. If this starts aging or breaking, that actually hurts me personally, because or the style of hair, or the face, or the job, yes. Even the aging. I know people who are totally suicidal because they're aging, you know. I don't want to be aging face. That's identification to the point of real suffering. Oh, yes, as you say, identification with the job and losing it. And then who am I without my job? Who am I without my career? Yeah, painful. It's just so many ways we find to torture ourselves. And of course, we are not guilty of it. It's a pattern that we learned by observing parents and teachers and everyone. It's a setup.
One of the bikers' mantras: "You touch my bike, you touch me."
Oh yeah.
That's exactly what we've been talking about.
Or my tribe, or my country, or my group, or my football team.
I was thinking about that before, because Donald Trump's assassinated a commander in Iran. You know, he's about to be re-elected, and there's this tribal response. You know, which to the, you know, like the enemy. And I was thinking about how rudimentary the mind is. You know, it wants a villain, and just then I was reflecting on my life, how people I've cast as villain, I have been unable to sustain that resentment, and now they are friends, you know, or they are, you know, lovely family member. You know, like, it's just so primitive to label stuff good and bad.
Yes.
And yet, you know, there's this rise up of people wanting to form a tribe because of perceived threat.
That's what creates all the wars.
Yeah. And the thing is,
self-centeredness.
my Jesus is better than your Jesus has caused more deaths. The thing that being part Irish, I'm just always fascinated that you have Northern Ireland Protestant and then Catholic. Everything else can be the same in their lifestyle and what they do, the way they eat, everything else, except if you're Protestant and you're Catholic, you could potentially have been killed, beaten to death, or whatever, or hated. And yet religious.
I'm just about to go there in August, and my friend she's from Northern Ireland, and you know, she's Catholic from Northern Ireland. And we were going to book a place to stay, and she said, "Oh, I can't stay there. I'm a McCormick," and that's an Irish Catholic name, and I wouldn't want to stay there because, you know, if it's run by a Protestant, even though the trouble is over, I wouldn't take the chance.
And it's almost embedded and ingrained cellularly because it's the BS of the mind. It's the belief systems of a mind, and you have to be taught that behavior. You can't do a behavior that hasn't been programmed into you. And so all of us, and the way we act and do, has been programmed, you know, since we were a little bundle of love coming out. So, it's all BS.
That's right.
It's all a construction, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all a construction of the mind, and everything here that we can perceive is mind-made.
Yes.
So we make our own world, and people that
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
It's interesting what someone was saying before. I was thinking how the word is a collective hunch. Like, I don't know if you see yellow the same way I see yellow. But the word,
Yeah, it's just a word, like shoes, like scarf.
yeah.
It's so many different versions.
Mm.
So there's not a similarity, but it's just a word. But there's certain things, love is something that most people can relate to more as a feeling and an energy and as a description and stuff. But
Or some
different than
people
a thing.
get caught up in the male-female love thing.
Yeah.
I like the way Bob just sort of uses it as interchangeably sort of with love.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
life love.
just presence awareness.
Yeah.
Everything else is bubble and froth like consciousness or it's like I like that thing, my emptiness is full, my silence sings.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's coming up in me right now is this is true, and yet my sister, who's now in Canberra, gasping for breath, in the 5th week of fires, is suffering.
Yes.
And it's sometimes difficult to allow compassion to be sitting alongside these beliefs and these ideas, because suffering exists somewhere, or apparently.
Yeah.
So I think there's almost a danger in becoming somewhat sort of elitist about this and sort of saying, look, it's all Maya, doesn't really matter, when someone's bleeding to death at your feet.
Yeah. It's a different.
But again, if you focus on that, you won't be focusing on some conceptual idea. You'll be acting spontaneously, what is naturally what you're moved to do in that situation.
Yeah.
You just don't ignore things.
Yeah.
And she's also, sadly, unfortunately, because it's such a tragic thing, I've flown in just 2 days ago, is that there is a situation which is causing incredible physical suffering in a situation.
Yeah.
It's just that if the story of the mind can make her suffering even tenfold, in terms of what's going to happen when the fires die down, what's going to be left of me, how are we going to survive, and the mind that mind will never have an answer on what's next in anything, whether it's 10 minutes from now or 2 days from now. But all you can send to somebody, which I do, would be send prayers and love, and have her not get into a story and just be able to do what reality required for her own safety, for her own peace as best she can get it. And that's really where, I'm not on that level, but I had a cancer issue last March. I had severed tendons in my shoulder, but for whatever reason, I did not talk story about it. I didn't want to go anywhere farther to see what would happen down the road. Am I going to get another cancer? Is something going to get worse? Am I going to be able to do it? And so, that's basically, she's got a reality that is really terrible and tragic. And I think that compassion being sent by the human part of us is crucial, but it's that, sick, conditioned mind that can take us even to greater suffering.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree with that. I just think it's important to keep both in.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think we're moved to act.
Whatever.
We're moved to act. And I think the less that we're in the story, the more compassionate we become.
Yeah.
That's right.
Actually.
Because we're not caught up in a story.
Yeah.
It's just a natural functioning, and when there's suffering in front of you, like Bob said, you'll be moved to act. To help. Because the less we're up here, the more we're in here.
Right.
it seems that there's a simple distinction between the normal way of life, which is everything is suffering, as the Buddha said, all is suffering. And then, as we were sitting here quietly this morning, there were times where there was no no suffering evident. So it's more like it's the end of suffering, or nirvana. You experience both. But habitually we tend to live in the samsara, in the mundane existence. But we're never really far away from that switch to when the mind is peaceful and there's no worries, there's no problems.
Everything's perfectly resolved in that
Yeah.
unborn Buddha mind, yeah.
So the suffering really stems from the perception, the ignorance in every perception that takes this to be duality. And then you've got the duality of pain, suffering, anxiety, physical suffering, and all of that.
And I thought when I understood who I wasn't, that perhaps I wouldn't feel, so there was an actual fear initially of letting go, because I thought I wouldn't feel anymore. In fact, it's the opposite. I feel more, because I'm not caught up in a story blocking me from feeling anymore. I'm just with what is right now, whatever that is. And the action figure acts. Not that there's an actual, name for it, but there is a responding and acting to whatever is.
So what are feelings like without a story?
The elements. That's the thing that comes up for me. We're the elements. So sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's sunny, sometimes there's thunder and lightning, and sometimes there's just bright sunshine, and we're all of that. If you use that analogy to explain feeling, that's what I like to use, because I don't know from any given moment what's going to come up, and if there's not a big story around it all, whatever's going to come up's going to come up. Then someone else might label it. Say, oh, you're angry. I'll go, oh, I've just got a lot of energy today. But it's whatever comes up in the moment, and then it's labelled. So if you're not up here, whatever's coming up will just flow, and you can't guarantee what that is, ever.
It sounds scary.
Yes, of course, because to me, we've been brought up to think, oh, I shouldn't be angry, I shouldn't, big boys don't cry, girls should be sweetness and light at all times and not say anything, overly assertive. There's all stories around all sorts of things, but when you know you're not the story, and neither is anybody else, you're basically the elements. That's what you are. And the elements, you can't tell the sun not to shine, you can't tell the rain not to pour, you can't say, stop that lightning right now. It's the same with our feelings, with our responding, whatever it is right now, free, limitless.
And having faith that whatever that response is right, that it's not going to harm someone. It is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
Even if it does harm. You never know. The harm may be a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's no one being harmed.
There's no one to be harmed, and who's going to have faith? That's how I see it. Who's going to have faith? But yeah, I mean, there's a general trust that all is well.
Yeah.
There's a general all is well, and everything's happening as it should. They're about the only stories I like to entertain. All is well, and everything's happening as it should.
But who said that? Who says that? Who says that all is well and everything is happening as it should? How do you know that? I don't know that. I hope it's true. But I don't know
doesn't
that.
matter.
How do you know that? How does anyone know that?
What is wrong with right now if you don't think about it?
Sorry?
What is wrong with right now if you don't think about it?
Nothing's wrong with right now.
It must be well.
Good answer. Good pointer, rather, not an answer, a pointer.
And also even the idea of knowing, that I know that everything is okay. That knowing comes really from the head, because the heart doesn't need that assurance. It is as it is, end of story. It isn't any other way, so that's it. It's neither good nor bad. It's nothing can be said about that. But the head wants to say, oh, I have a faith that it is all right, or it is as it should be. That's still from conceptualizing. And also I wanted to add, because it kind of sounds wrong when I say that, what Michael was saying, that you can hurt someone, and that's okay too. Of course, it's not okay to intentionally try and hurt someone, unless someone is constituted this way, they can't stop it. But it may happen that you, with the open heart and the greatest intentions, you give someone a hand and you prevent them from crisis, and you prevent them from investigation, and you helped, and did you really? Because sometimes, you know, you accidentally say something and someone interprets it in the way that will bring them down or will make them upset. And that's how life has it. And this can actually also create some sort of a ripple effect, and it can take them to the next stage. It's really relinquishing all the credit for whatever happens. Even whatever I'm saying with the best intention or whatever the intention, I'm not saying it. It is how life has formed that conditioning in me. I would not be saying things that are completely out of character, because I don't have I don't even have networks in the brain that would let me run it. And what I am saying, what is ingrained in that form, is not me either, because I haven't chosen my parents, my schools, my society, past experiences. They all kind of came one after another, and the outcome is this. So yeah, it always only is just what it is and as it is.
I heard a gorgeous thing from Julia yesterday. I don't think she even realised when she said it, but when I was talking to her on the phone, but it was about responsibility. And breaking up that word to response ability.
Yeah, Bob was hammering it to her for 3 years, so she's got it good.
But I just thought it was beautiful when you break up that word. I just thought that was really beautiful. That you know, we're just little pure patterns of energy bouncing along with the ability to respond. So we have a response ability.
Yeah.
I like it. I just thought it was great.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
Any responsibility.
But it's, you know, and I've been going on about responding, adding hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, responding, because try not responding. You know, it's like that guy rang up Bob and said, you know, all right, well, if I know who I'm not, you know.
If I can't do anything.
If I can't do anything, he said, well, try staying in the phone box.
Yeah.
You know, so we're naturally open to responding, you know, and the right action will come. We don't choose the action, but the right action will come.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just waiting now. I'm not waiting, but it's like, you know, like I was trying to work something out, it's like, I'll just wait. And the response comes up.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to.
And I think it's funny, lately I've been watching the mind's sort of pattern is to have an idea, you know, to have an idea to do something a certain way. And then I'm doing it in a completely different way, or I'm doing something completely different. And I think, oh, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's happening. You know, it's like I had a certain idea to do something a certain way, or this or that, and then I notice I'm doing it differently. I just think, wow, okay, that's what's happening. It's just interesting to watch. I hope that makes sense, but yeah.
Totally.
It comes up sometimes that there's a belief around that sometimes the more you worry about something, it gives it attention. So you've got something big coming up in the future.
Exactly.
So the idea is, well, if I don't worry about it, I'll forget about it and there'll be some sort of disaster. But even that worry is not helping at all.
No, that's right. Bob used to call that the wish fulfilling tree. You know, if you worry about something, it's like the wish fulfilling tree.
It's just a wrong way of investing your energy, because now you invest your vital energy, that intelligence, that creative power, you waste it, you put it into the drain, really, by kind of affecting your body, because the chemicals in your body will be cortisol and adrenaline, and it will be fight-flight effect. That's really not supportive. And also that energy is spent in a way that is not being constructive. Whereas if you could, and the same thing happens with Chris, what you were saying, you see, when people are in a situation that there is a physical pain, or there is a danger, or there is someone trapped in the body with cancer, or someone trapped in a house that is burning, this is, non-duality is not going to help him on a physical level, although it may relieve the anxiety or fear from dying. But understanding that the situation does not require worry or black scenarios, or projecting any sort of how can it get worse, or how horrible, destitute, or how wrong, how God could have done it to me. This is not helpful. So this is the psychological suffering that it can be that can be put aside. The physical pain, yes, this is something to be dealt with. Although in a moment it can also be seen as just a vibration of sensation without the label. It's not always available to see it this way, but at times it is. And then you would know everything about it. But the psychological suffering, that's what is not necessary. I mean, it is necessary until it isn't. Until it is seen through that it's not necessary. And as Jane, you beautifully expressed that, we have the tendency to run out from the raw feeling, raw emotion, to the story, because the feeling can be overwhelming, especially as children when we learn words and we constantly talk to our heads, because that's the process of learning by repetition. And then this voice, this repeating voice, becomes the identity. We believe we are that commentary in the head. And that commentary, what a way to sneak out from that sense of incompleteness when the child wants more love. It doesn't matter how loving family it has, the growing, the little monster there is hungry, it wants more affection, more love, more energy, more attention. It constantly wants more attention, and it doesn't get it, and it's threatening. So now, distraction, going to the head, listening to the voice, is a great distraction from that unfulfilled need. And this develops to the point where we go to the story instead of being with what is, with the raw feeling, emotion. And that's the suffering, because that emotion is a vibration. If it needs attention and it gets attention, it clears out. The water finds its even level and it stops, doesn't need to run. But the head, once it starts spinning, the habit of spinning it never stops, and it gets worse. So really just coming down to what is, staying with what is rather than with what isn't, because what could be, should be, or would be is an imagination. The black scenarios or the self-pity, this is all imagination. It is not the present situation, what's happening right now. And right now, if there is a danger, or if there is a pain, or there is anything, but I don't spin the story, the body is usually pretty well equipped with that survival instinct, which will make the decisions without involuntary decision, just like it beats the heart. The same way it will look for the way out, or it will it will stay with the energy that is contracted, so that energy loosens up. So really just trusting that moment without running away into the story, which can be sometimes, that distraction can be sometimes necessary, and it is to be appreciated also, because that's the way life has it.
And also, isn't
Yeah.
it, there's a greater sense of presence for anybody that's in those crises, because there's basically what's right in front of them that's pure life or death survival and not a story.
Yes.
And then there are people, hopefully, that can help. They can help, and others to survive. And it's not,
Yes.
they can't have time to get into a story. And on our end, we can feel the sadness and compassion for them and wish to help and everything else, but they're practicing more presence than somebody who's in a story in their head, because they don't have time for a story. In a way.
This is such a good point. This is a brilliant point, because our friend Bob's in mind, Peter, he is in the squad, like an emergency evacuation point, with all the people that who have been evacuated from their own houses. And they are sitting in a situation where they don't know if the house is still there or not. They might have lost everything by now.
My cousin's
And
in that situation.
yeah, and there's quite a few people in Australia right now in that situation. But they are quite, him, Bill as well. They posted on Facebook how blessed they are to stay in that together, to experience the kindness, to experience the togetherness. They can actually focus in that time of crisis on the qualities that they would otherwise perhaps miss out or not even be able to touch. And I remember even more horrible story of my ex-husband's grandfather, who said the best years of his life was the Second World War, where he was in the forest, he was a partisan, he was fighting for some other people, seeing dead bodies all over. But the friendship, the togetherness, and the loyalty, that was something that he never experienced before and after.
Sense of connection.
Sense of connection and a purpose and a mission and all that. And now we are sitting here and we are imagining what they are going through, and we are imagining the worst things, and we completely miss out on that pearls that they are experiencing in the moment. Some of them are, some of them may not. Some of them may be just through a plain nightmare. And that's, of course, that's a horrible thing. But can I really help them if I put myself through the same nightmare, imagining how bad it is for them? Probably not. There are probably better ways to be present and to be helpful. So I hope, Chris, you don't, I totally feel your heart and the compassion for your sister gasping for breath. But sitting here and going through the same thing in your mind is not helping her.
No, I'm thinking of driving up and getting her, actually, so it's a bit more practical than that.
Oh.
But there is a lot of story around.
Yeah,
Cool.
and understandably so. You love her. That's so understandable.
Yeah, I was in I had heard on the news that Lillypilly was under threat, which is where my cousin bought a house a couple of years ago. And until I actually heard from her, there was a real depth of concern there until I knew she was okay. And so I texted her, she didn't get back to me, so the communication lines were down. So then I rang her brother, who's a QC at a law firm in the city, and he wasn't there either. And so then I left a message, and then finally 2 days later she got back to me and said, that she'd been evacuated, she was in Canberra, friends of hers had lost their houses and lost everything. She didn't know when she left whether her house would be there when she got back. She's going back today, and but she's safe and she's all right, and she said it's now going to be the community rebuilding their lives.
Yeah.
But there was a lot going on here until I heard that she was safe. There was a lot going on.
And exactly, this is what I was going to add. Whatever is happening, the easiest thing to deal with that is to recognize that this is love speaking. The worry, it comes from love and concern. And even, I spoke to Julia yesterday as well. And she was pissed off with herself because she did something wrong. And that disappointment in herself, it was also love. To actually be able to recognize the underlying motive behind everything as love and stay with that, rather than divert into the craziness of the mind. But just, this is your concern about your friend, or yours about your sister, or cousin, or Julia's concern about her apparent mistake that she's done with someone, or all of it.
Because she was angry.
And the
And like
anger
we
is
were
love
talking
too.
About, yeah, like we were talking about, that anger is labelled anger, and you know, you're not meant to be angry. Well, you know, you can't tell the lightning not to strike.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was really disappointment in herself, because she cares so much about herself that she doesn't want to look stupid or be stupid. That's love.
Everything's love, really. It's all love. Yeah. Yeah. I love, you know, it's either love or life or truth. We're talking about labels for that presence. Love or life or truth. But yeah, there is only love, really.
Yeah.
It's saying that's behind all these reactions.
That's
Yes,
yes.
love.
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm gonna find that quote of Nisargadatta, which is actually illustrating it in such a profound way.
What is it?
That life is love and love is life.
There's only life.
Yes.
Life lives on.
Life lives on life. There is one more that is a little bit longer, and that one goes like this. Does love act deliberately? Yes and no. Life is love and love is life. What keeps the body together but love? What is desire but love of the self? What is the fear but the urge to protect? And what is knowledge but the love of truth? The means and forms may be wrong, but the motive behind is always love. Love of the me and the mine. The me and the mine may be small, or may explode and embrace the universe, but love remains.
Oh, can you send me that?
Sure.
I love
Yeah, I posted it a few times, and I'll send you the whole picture.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, I've got it in that, but it'd be nice just to have it as a, you know,
Yeah, sure.
keep it in my
Put on
photos.
the fridge.
Yeah.
On the fridge.
I put the picture of Nisargadatta on this one with a
Beautiful.
sunset.
Thanks,
Put it on a
Kat.
stubby
That's
holder.
beautiful.
There you go, stubby holder.
Stubby holder. That's funny. Oh dear. Imagine if I gave one of those to my son for his birthday with that pictured on it. Go, what's this, Mum?
How do they say love? God is love.
Mm.
Love must be God. That was all mine.
That's a beautiful one.
Anyway, time's caught up with us.
Oh, I was just getting
Thank you.